right, welcome back. Thank you so much. This kicks off the start of our ETF Spotlight sessions. These are short 15 to 20-minute talks that try to dive deep into one specific area. First up, we're going to have STOXX talking about the evolution of indexes. Take it away.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matteo Andreetto, CEO of STOXX. Thank you very much for joining this session. And I guess your caffeine level, your sugar level is pretty high after dessert, and so I think that you're going to find this interesting and quite energetic. We're going to talk about evolution of indexing and how to regain control of regional exposure and to build smart regional benchmark. You heard a lot about smart beta this morning, and we want to focus on one particular aspect, which is economic exposure. What is economic exposure? Well, let's think for 1 second that we are a financial advisor, European-based, and you are looking at your strategic asset allocation, which is basically broken up in different buckets. 40% of your portfolio most likely is in European equities, 40% in developed market ex-Europe, and 20% in emerging markets. Why? Because you want to have portfolio diversification, and also you want to implement some directional views. But more than anything else, you need low correlation. You want to have an accurate replication of the economic realities in your portfolio, and this is a typical portfolio that gives you that from a pure benchmark and passive point of view. There is a problem. The increasing internationalization of companies effectively leads to strong overlap between different regions. So if you look at your European exposure, nearly 40% of the revenues of the companies that are listed in Europe come from other areas. 20% from North America, 12% from Asia, 5% from South America, and 2% from Africa. So you are taking risk that you are not necessarily want to take just by using the regional benchmark. If you apply revenue exposure metrics to standard benchmarking, you can actually see that as part of your European exposure, for companies that are listed in the United Kingdom, for example, the blue chart that are currently listed in the United Kingdom, your effectively exposure to the United Kingdom is only 15%. So on, the same applies to France, the same applies to Switzerland. Germany is a little bit better, Spain, a little bit better as well, but of course you're taking this nearly 20% exposure to North America, which is something you wouldn't want to have if you are buying a core European exposure of your assets. So why is that? So let's look at one company in particular to understand the way this works. So if we use Lufthansa as an example, the company is 100% Germany because it's listed in Germany. So it's incorporated as a German company, so it shows up under Germany. There is a problem. If you look at their revenue exposure, Lufthansa derives only 27% of the revenues from Germany, 15% from North America, 34% of Europe ex-Germany, and 24% from others. And this is the level of granularity that Lufthansa gives us. So it's quite granular. Some other companies, Apple, for example, they just tell you that their revenues are international. So what we usually do is we have to find out what is the right exposure. And we have two ways of doing it. One, to use country-level reporting, so rely on what the companies are telling us. And second thing we have to do is to estimate the gaps. So really try to allocate some of those European unspecified regions to some of the countries. So the first bucket, so in the case of Lufthansa, they're telling us how much is Germany, how much is USA. In the second bucket will fall companies like Europe ex-Germany, which is a general regional level, not properly specified, and others. At STOXX, what we have done, we have created a quite sophisticated estimator to try to allocate those revenues that are not properly allocated. And we take in consideration both the sector dynamics, the sector in which the company is particularly based, and also country trade dynamics. So in the case of Lufthansa, we try to allocate of those 34% that is not properly allocated of Europe ex-Germany. We look at France, for example, we derive a 4.7% allocation, and the UK 3.8%. And we do the same for every single country to reach the single country level granularity. This is the idea that is behind the family of indices, which is the TRU family, which is basically capture tailor-made exposure to target regions and countries. So what we do, we select companies with a minimum requirement revenue exposure to target region and countries. And then we weight by free float market capitalization times the revenue exposure to that particular market. This technology and this family of indices last year won the ETF Best Index Award by the ETF.com guys. So what's the value proposition? First of all, you can use the True family to increase your portfolio efficiency. Why is that? If you look at the standard indices, which are the one on the left, you can see that, as we pointed out earlier, only 56% of European revenues for a European-based indices actually comes from Europe. The rest comes from developed market ex-Europe, and also there is quite a significant percentage that come from emerging markets. The same applies to developed market ex-Europe, and the same, funny enough, applies also to emerging markets, where you want to have that red bar as high as possible, and effectively what happens, you have exposure to developed markets, but also to the European markets. So what STOXX, by using the True technology, by using economic exposures, and by weighting the free float of the market cap of those single companies by their country of exposure, we actually managed to create family of indices with 100% exposure to those particular regions, which are the True indices that you can see on the right side. What's the impact of this particular family of indices and these concepts? Well, first of all, if you look at the standard indices, which are the red bar on volatility, the volatility profile is more or less the same. So we are not adding risk in terms per unit of performance to the original benchmark. But what is very relevant is actually the chart on the right side, the correlation. We are significantly reducing the correlation of the traditional benchmark with its peer, and we are pushing down the efficiency of the overall portfolio. And as we learned today, at the end of the day, smart beta concepts are as relevant as they are in the usage that you actually going to, how you're going to implement them in your overall portfolio, and what's the benefit of using those technologies. So by using True, what we are doing, we are effectively shifting the efficient frontier on the left, because we are allowing to capitalize on that lower correlation, and we are allowing higher higher returns per unit of risk that you are taking in your portfolio. And as you can see, the combination of True benchmarks allows you effectively to have an efficient frontier that represent all the possible combination of all the different underlying portfolios. So going back to our original example, and the original allocation, our 40-40-20 portfolio, adding the True exposure in terms of benchmark of the underlying markets allows you to do two things, which are showed on the right-hand side. First of all, the performance is more or less similar. So there is effectively no difference in terms of your investment objective. So what you really want is 40% of your portfolio to replicate Europe, 40% developed market ex-Europe, and 20% emerging markets. The combined portfolio that uses True technology effectively allows you to do that. There is a significant difference in terms of the volatility of the combined portfolio, because we capitalize from that different correlation between all the different regional areas by excluding any type of overlap from a revenues point of view. And we reduce volatility nearly from 19% to 17%. This portfolio is calculated using STOXX TRU Europe 75%, which are companies with at least 75% of the revenues coming from out of Europe. True developed market ex-Europe 100%, so 100% of the revenues coming from developed market ex-Europe, and 100% emerging markets. There is also a second usage of this of the True family of indices, which is effectively portfolio immunization. So you can use it both from a strategic asset allocation, but also from a tactical point of view. What does that mean? Well, let's put it into a practical use. And more or less a year ago, in 3 weeks, we had a crash in the Chinese market. I'm pretty much sure that you guys will remember that. And the China A market was down nearly 40% in a 3 weeks time period. Well, that was pretty bad. I'm sure you remember that. And what was interesting is that the effect were not only linked to China, but also had a significant effect on the US market. So what we have done here, we ranked all the US companies by quartile for their median exposure to China. So top quartile, US listed companies with no exposure to China, and then we look at the median exposure for all those different quartiles. And you can notice there is nearly a linear relationship between the Chinese exposure and their underperformance, their median performance in that period of time, which is shown in the following chart, which is the performance of the S&P 500 in that period, down minus 2.1%, compared to the true 100% USA, which are companies that are 100% of their revenues come from the US market. And that's significant because if in a 3 weeks time period you can actually capitalize on 160 basis points time difference, you can understand that from a tactical point of view, this tool is extremely efficient. So what are the three messages? Well, there are three messages here. One, revenue overlap between traditional benchmarks can be significant. And that's true for every single regional area. Europe, US, emerging markets, developed market, ex-USA and ex-Europe. By adding a revenue exposure dimension to benchmark, to regional benchmarks, you can reduce correlation significantly between benchmarks. And capitalizing on the different correlation allows you to create and shift the efficient frontier to the left. What you can do that is clearly you can create more efficient portfolios, capitalize on the efficient frontier, and create a better risk-return profile for your investors. We have 3 minutes for Q&A in case there is any. Nothing? Good. Thank you very much then.